Hey, what's up, VC? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel, and it's time for another video. This one is going to be a thrash metal video, which I've been promising for a little while. But this is also going to be a response to Andy's Vinyl Den's 200 subs contest. He asked us to show 10 perfect albums. And if I just show 10 perfect albums, I'm going to show a bunch of favorites and stuff that I've shown dozens of times over the last 3 or 4 years, and I just didn't want to do that, so I decided to do 10 perfect thrash albums. Now let me preface this by saying that I don't think these are the 10 best albums of all time, or the 10 best thrash albums of all time, though 4 or 5 of these would definitely be on my list, and I'll point those out as I show them. And they're not even my 10 favorite thrash albums of all time. And the reason for that is I decided to just do vinyl. And a bunch of my favorite thrash albums I don't have on vinyl, so you'll notice that there's no Testament in this video, and there would definitely be a Testament video, or I'm sorry, a Testament album if this was my my list of the 10 best of all time or my 10 favorite of all time. There would also be an Anthrax in here, which there's not. Just again, I don't have the album that I would have included on vinyl. Plus, I didn't want this video to also be the same albums that everybody shows when they talk about their favorite or perfect thrash albums. So, again, while about half of these would be on most people's lists and have been shown a bunch of times, there's a number of here that'll probably surprise some of you. So, and some of you will even argue that a few of these are not thrash. You know, the typical argument we get with Metallica and with Megadeth, and with one of the other albums I'm going to show as well, where people constantly say it's not thrash. I think it is. It's my video. If you don't like it, comment below. But let's go ahead and start with this album that's playing in the background is not part of the 10. However, I do think that it is a perfect thrash album, and it is my favorite from this band. It's also about to come out on vinyl in a couple of months, so had I waited to show this, this would have been in my video. And you will probably likely see a signed copy of it on my wall within the next few months. But this is Puppet of Destruction from Ultimatum. Again, it's my favorite album from Ultimatum. Doesn't get much better. So let's jump into it. First up, these first 4 would all be on my list of the best thrash albums ever. They would also be on my list of my favorite thrash albums of all time. So let's just jump into it. First up, and this one is controversial to some people. A lot of guys will completely agree with me on this. I think not only is this the band's best album, this is probably the best all-time thrash album, in my opinion. And that's Ride the Lightning from Metallica. Now, Kill 'Em All is definitely a raw album, and I love the aggressiveness of Kill 'Em All. I actually like No Life Till Leather even better. I love the speed of No Life Till Metal, or No Life Till Metal, No Life Till Leather. But Ride the Lightning is the perfect album for me. Their songwriting had gotten to the perfect spot. The songs on this album are all phenomenal, both musically and lyrically. Master of Puppets, it slowed it down way too much for me. I know everybody thinks that that's the, you know, every list out there just about says that's the best thrash album of all time. That's not, that's my least favorite album of all of the 80s Metallica albums. It always has been. There's some great songs on there. I just don't think it compares to any of their other 80s output. I never have. I remember when it came out how disappointed I was the first time I heard it. But Ride the Lightning has always been the top of the pile for me. It still maintains that speed and aggressiveness of Kill 'Em All, just better songwriting, and again, just overall a better album. So this would be not just this is probably my favorite metal album of all time, and my second favorite. Actually, 3 of my favorite albums of all time are in this list, so, or in this grouping, I should say. Next up, again, this is one that people argument about whether it's thrash or not all the time. I don't care. I think it's thrash. It's an amazing album. It's Rust in Peace. And this is probably my second all-time favorite metal album. Every song on here is perfect. I mean, you got Holy Wars, Hangar 18, Five Magics, Tornado of Souls. He still does Holy Wars, Hangar 18, and Five Magics, and Rust in Peace. I've seen them 6 or 7 times, and they've done all of those songs in every single show that I've seen them in. Just beginning to end, just perfect album. Again, this would be number 2 on my list of the best thrash albums of all time. Number 3 on that list, and also another perfect album, one that I just talked about recently in another video, but Bonded by Blood by Exodus. A lot of newer or younger metal fans don't know this album and the importance of this album. I mean, this really was a game changer in the thrash scene. Unfortunately, it didn't get released until, what, a year and a half after it was recorded. So within the San Francisco scene, everybody knew this music, and it was really changing the way the thrash bands played and the way they wrote. Unfortunately, the general public didn't know about it until almost 2 years later. And by that time, Metallica had become the superstars of the thrash scene. But like I said before, this is the only album with Bailoff on vocals, who unfortunately, I think he had a stroke a few years ago, but he's no longer with us. His vocals were very schizophrenic and all over the place, and it wouldn't have fit with later Exodus, but it fits perfectly with this album. It's so frantic, and his vocals, the schizophrenic vocals, fit with that sound. What was also cool about this is Gary Holt and Rick Hunolt, they would do these like dueling guitar solos that was phenomenal. And you hear a lot of bands doing that today, and that all really came from this album. But this is just a thrash masterpiece. If you haven't heard this, this is one that you've got to pick up. Now, they did re-record it years later, and I don't remember if it was Zetro that did the vocals on that, but it doesn't have the same impact without Paul Bailoff's vocals. I mean, his vocals were perfect for this album, for this era of thrash. So number 4, this would also be my number 4 best thrash albums of all time, and this is one that really got overlooked by a lot of people just because it was from Germany. This album was super influential. As a matter of fact, I don't care if you just about every thrash band, every death metal band, and every black metal band list this is really one of the more important albums and their discovery of the music, and this album was really close to being the first death metal album. If they would have taken this up just a half a notch more, this would have been straight up death metal, and it would have beat Death to the gates. But this is Pleasure to Kill from Creator. Just an amazing album, very raw, very rough production, everything that the black metal community loves. It had the grittier vocals that just, like I said, just to turn it up a notch more would have been straight up death metal vocals. Again, perfect album. And the song "The Pestilence" is one of the all-time best thrash metal songs. Pestilence, Choir of the Damned, or no, that's the intro, right? And Ripping Corpse. Just phenomenal. And the artwork on this is absolutely amazing. Now, honestly, the first 3 Creator albums were all phenomenal. Actually, I'm a real big fan of Creator, but this was the one that really stood out, and this is the one that really influenced the death metal scenes and the black metal scenes that would come shortly after. And like I said, those 4 would be on my list of the best thrash metal albums of all time. And the first 3, while this is not one of my all-time favorite albums, it would probably be in the top 30 or so. And a lot of that was just, I got into Creator years later. It was probably the late 90s before I really sat down and listened to a Creator album. I knew who they were, I knew of them, I had heard their stuff, but I had never bought any of their music at that point. Next one, you've just got booming, messy perfection. Gene Hoglan is an absolute monster on here. This is pre-Death, pre-Devin Townsend project. I mean, but this album from beginning to end is just an absolute masterpiece. This is one that any Thrash fan should have in their collection. This is actually the recent repress from, I think, 2 years ago, 2014, on High Roller Records. High Roller did an amazing job on this reissue. Don Doty, worst heavy metal name of all time, is just perfect on here. I do overall like the two albums after this a little bit better, but when it comes to just straight up thrash insanity, this is the album to have. Next up, this is another one that's a little bit controversial, just because the band kind of changed their sound a little bit with this album. They had 2 new guitarists, but it's just as heavy. It's still just straight up thrash. This is my favorite album from this band, but this is Horoscope from Overkill. And this was just released for the first time on vinyl here in the US, as you can see by the big sticker right there. And I've only had this for a few weeks on vinyl. I'm really glad to have this in the collection. But I love everything that Overkill has released. Even in the mid-90s and the early 2000s, when people kind of fell off and weren't a fan of of their music, I still like all that stuff. This band, this is where they hit their peak, in my opinion. I love all their stuff from the 80s. Their first 4 albums are some of the best thrash metal albums of all time. I just think this one's a step above all of those, just a tiny bit. Amazing album. If you haven't heard this, I highly recommend checking this one out. A lot of people get stuck on the 80s Overkill, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those are all phenomenal albums. But this was 91. And what's cool about this is this came out right at the time when everybody was saying heavy metal was dead. The bands from the 80s, they weren't making good albums anymore, and a lot of those bands weren't, you know. I do like the Black Album from Metallica, which came out around the same time, but they had completely changed their style. You know, they completely stopped being thrash. And Overkill proved that you can still, in 1991, put out amazing music. Next up, again, one of my all-time, this would be in my top 5 all-time favorite albums. Excuse me. I saw the band, I don't remember if it was this tour, I believe it was the tour after this. However, they played most of the songs from this album. This was kind of a, I don't want to, kind of a bridge album, I guess. And it's Seasons in the Abyss from Slayer. This is my favorite Slayer album. I thought about Show No Mercy just because of the importance of it. And I think it's a perfect album too. I just personally, this one is better in my opinion. Every song on here is amazing. You know, I mean, one after another. War Ensemble, Blood Red, Spirit in Black, Expendable Youth, Dead Skin Mask. Perfect thrash albums. And then the whole album is ended with Seasons in the Abyss, which I think is one of the all-time best metal songs. It's just perfect. It's Dave Lombardo at his best. Kerry King at his best. Jeff Hanneman is amazing. They just murder it on this album. A lot of people would say Rain and Blood. I think Rain and Blood is good. It's never been a favorite of mine. It's probably the least listened to album in my Slayer collection. I prefer their earlier stuff. South of Heaven's okay. I think they got a little bit too slow in South of Heaven and it was more of a groove album. Don't get me wrong, it's still thrash. It was just more of a groove-based thrash. And then they brought it back with Seasons in the Abyss and really released a perfect album. Unfortunately, Dave left the band for a little over a decade after this. And when I saw them, it was not with Dave Lombardo. Who was the drummer? Was it Bostoff? I can't remember who the drummer was, but they couldn't do the Dave Lombardo drum fills. And it just kind of ruined the show when I saw him live that time. And I saw him years later with Dave again, and it was absolutely phenomenal. But perfect album, beginning to end. Next one, another controversial one, just because of the album that came out after this. I've talked about this album a number of times. I hated this album when I first heard it. I first got a copy of this in maybe 92 or 93, and I've shown my CD copy. I've still got the original pressing from back in the early 90s that I bought. And then I revisited this 4 or 5 years ago, and I absolutely loved it. It's now one of my favorite albums from this band. No, it's probably my favorite album from this band. And I tried to get it signed when I saw them a couple months ago. Unfortunately, I couldn't get close enough to the two guys from the band that I was watching. But this is Schizophrenia from Sepultura. Now, I've heard a lot of negative stuff about this album. I've heard, it's too raw, horrible production. That's all the stuff that I love about this album. Beneath the Remains is an amazing album. It's a perfect album too. And I would probably put it right here with this one. This one's just a tiny bit better in my opinion. I just love the rawness and the aggressiveness of this. They were still a young band that was really on fire, really had that fire in their gut, and really trying to make a name for themselves. They hadn't been signed to a major label yet. They were still on Cogumelo Records. And actually, this one, I've shown this before. This is an original Brazilian pressing that I picked up in Brazil last time I was there. Phenomenal album though. If you haven't listened to this or given this a chance or haven't heard it in a long time, go back and listen to it. What's funny too is they were in the studio for the next album, and the producer, I can't remember who the producer was. Was it what's his name? The guy in Florida that produced everything. It's not coming to me right now. Brown? Is it Brown? Anyway, he mentioned that Max Cavalero's guitar is out of tune for this entire album. And Max had never even noticed that before. And that was one of the big complaints about this album, is that his guitar is out of tune. I love that. It kind of just changes up the sound between his and Andreas' guitar. Again, I think this is a perfect thrash album. Go back and give it another spin if you haven't listened to it in a long time. Next up is a brand new album. This has only been out for about a month. Sorry. I was completely blown away by this album. I bought this album based on the fact that it was $11 and it said it was a thrash album. And a lot of people are calling it crossover. It's not really crossover in my mind. Crossover in my mind would be a little bit more hardcore than this one is. This is straight up thrash to me. But this is the new album, Nightmare Logic from Power Trip. This album's amazing. And look at that artwork. It's kind of hard to see. You got the skull in there. This is their second album. I just ordered their first album. I want to check that one out too. Shortly after I ordered this, I saw this list of the best post-2000 thrash metal albums. And this had only been out for like 2 weeks at that time, and it was already number 2 or number 3 on the list. So I couldn't wait to listen to it, and I've probably spun this 6 or 7 times already. Amazing album. I highly recommend picking this one up if you're into thrash. It's on Southern Lord Records. I picked it up from $20 spin, again, for like $11. It's not an expensive album. Highly recommend checking this one out, though. I'm not sure about their first album, and I have heard that their earlier EPs that they've released are punk albums. And I have a feeling that's why people are calling this crossover, because they started as a punk band, I guess, and have moved to thrash. Again, it doesn't have that crossover thrash sound to me. This is just straight up thrash, in my opinion. Again, Power Trip. And then last but not least, this one, I went back and forth between this. This is a Canadian band. I went back and forth between this band and another Canadian band. And this one won out just because I've always thought that this was a more important album and a little bit better album as well. And this is Strapato from Slaughter. Another just amazing artwork. I don't know if you can see it here. This one's actually signed by Dave Houston. I actually bought this direct from him. I was on eBay looking for an original pressing of Slaughter, and I ran across a thing that said signed copy. It was just normal price, the $20 or whatever it was that High Roller was selling it for. And so I went ahead and ordered it. You know, I couldn't find an original pressing for a decent price. I think the cheapest one was like $65, and it wasn't in that good a condition. So I went ahead and ordered this, not realizing that I was ordering directly from Dave Houston until I got an email the next day asking if I want it signed. And I was like, what do you mean do I want it signed? And then I saw the name on the eBay account, and I started talking to him back and forth through email and asked him if he had any other albums. And I ended up getting just about everything that they have available on vinyl. So this, all of their EPs, a couple of 7 inches, and he signed them all for me. But Strapato, such a good album. I can't even remember when this one came out. I want to say this is the first time I heard blast beats, though. You know, and this is pre-death metal. I mean, blast beats have been around since the 60s if you're familiar with jazz. Actually, it may be longer than that, but I know since at least the 60s, a variation of blast beats were used in jazz. But this was the first metal album where I had heard blast beats. And super raw, super rough production. Actually, what's cool about this High Roller pressing is there's an even rawer original pressing, or not original pressing, a raw unmixed version of the album. This is a 2-album set. The first is the original release, and then there's the uncut version that's even rawer that I like even better. But this album is perfect. And the other one that I went back and forth with was Alice in Hell from Annihilator, which just as easily could have been in here with the 10 perfect albums. But that one gets quite a bit of love in the VC. I don't see Slaughter get a lot of love, and they're super important. Not just that, Chuck Schuldiner almost ended up joining Slaughter. He was in talks with Dave Houston. I think he actually flew to Canada, and they did some stuff together before Dave decided to, or I'm sorry, before Chuck decided to go ahead and keep Death alive. But there was a change. There were talks of him shutting down Death and joining Slaughter, which would have been absolutely amazing. However, then we wouldn't have had, 5 of my favorite death metal albums of all time. But still, amazing album, perfect album beginning to end. Very raw, very rough, very thrash, very amazing. So I wanted to show this last one. That was my 10 perfect albums. This is kind of a bonus album. This just came out a couple of weeks ago. I guess it's been a couple months now. I finally got my copy in. I pre-ordered this from Pledge Music and ended up getting the signed copy. But this is Conformicide from Havoc. Their second album has been my favorite of theirs since I got into them about a year ago. And that was the one I listened to the most. And I actually thought about adding them in here until I heard the Power Trip album. But their last album kind of disappointed me. It's still a great thrash album. Don't confuse that. I just didn't like the sound of it as much as their first couple albums. And then this album came out, and this album is phenomenal. If you haven't checked this one out, I highly, highly recommend grabbing a copy of this. And this is going to be on my wall somewhere very soon. I'm going to be doing a room tour relatively soon. So I've been getting a lot of questions, a lot of people asking for a room tour, and I've been slacking about that. So there's going to be one. So that's my response for you, Andy. 10 perfect albums and a couple of bonuses with the Ultimatum and the Ultimatos. and the Havoc. Tell me what you guys think. Again, if this would have been the 10 greatest thrash albums of all time, some Testament would have been up here, probably Legacy. Maybe Among the Living. I'm not sure when it comes to Anthrax, but there would have been an Anthrax album in here. There would have been a Coroner album in here for sure. Again, Coroner, man, their stuff is so expensive on vinyl. I really want all their stuff on vinyl, but it's just so much money. But there you have it, guys. That's my 10 perfect albums. Again, tell me what you think. There's a link down below. Subscribe to Andy's channel. I'll put a link to the pre-sale. Oh, actually, the pre-sale is not up yet. Keep an eye out for Rox Records. They're going to be announcing a pre-sale of this on vinyl in the next month or so. So keep an eye out for that as well. Take care, VC. I will talk to you soon.